In the meantime, I'd like to reintroduce Rosemarie Crawford, who we met this morning, who's going to be talking about building community coalitions that keep animals out of shelters. Thank you, Rosemarie.
Okay, hello again. Getting into the final stretch for the day. Thanks for all coming back. I didn't scare too many people away. Okay, so let me get started right off. Thanks again for having me. Glad to be here. You saw this slide already. We're an education organization, so and actually we have some brochures in back if you want more information, or you can also visit us online, of course. But it's speaking at conferences, and it's doing workshops, and it's consultations, and it's webinars. So way far away on the other end of the other side of the earth, hopefully you can join us for some webinars on some of our kitten topics. So into this afternoon session, we're going to look at community coalitions, and deciding if they're right for you or not is really got to be the first step of all of that. And if you're thinking, yeah, the community coalition could be the answer to some of our problems, we're going to go through some steps in how you go about doing that. Laying the groundwork, finding your partnering members, figuring out what to expect with the partnering members and with your community in general, not just your coalition, but your community, and then getting that support of the community, and then finally evaluating your successes, because I'm sure you're going to be successful. And as you evaluate your successes and you look at your program and you reevaluate, you can maybe add in some more services and continue to improve on that program. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Let's try this again. Just jumped about 5 sessions. There we go. Okay, so I have a couple questions up here, or not really questions, quotations, but things I'm going to ask you. Do you find yourself thinking or saying, boy, if only we could provide such and such a service, we would be able to help more animals? If only we were able to do that. Or are you the person at the front counter or answering the phones and someone says, you know, hey, here's my situation, can you help me? And you unfortunately have to say, you know what, that's not really what we do. You know what, we're not able to help you with that right now. So if you find that you're having to say those things more often than you want, and if you think, gosh, we could serve more animals, but we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources, that's not really in our wheelhouse what those services would require, a community coalition could be your answer. So when I was doing this, I put this session together, and then I was just surfing, I don't know, something, I saw a quotation and it made me surf further, and then I'm finding these quotations and they were just dropping right in to the session. I was thinking, oh, that would be good for this. So I'm gonna have a bunch of quotations for you here. So on this slide, the quotation is, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. So let's get those community coalitions started. So planning the plan. It's been really fun talking with people here already and seeing and hearing about your organizations and the amazing things that are happening within your organizations, but also in general, when a person has an idea, sometimes it just takes one person to say, you know what, we could do something more, or I want to do something more, but I don't know how to go about it. So don't feel like a community coalition has to be everyone is already saying, yeah, this is what we want, and 12 people have come to this decision already. You might be that person who says, let's do something more. And a lot of times, it seems like a lot of the coalitions that I'm aware of, they start with 1 or 2 people saying, yeah, there's something more we can do. So you can be that one person, or you can't be 2 people. You could be the one person, or you can have a friend, and you can start something and start laying the groundwork. So the quotation on this slide is, you can't solve a problem until you ask the right questions. So let's start asking those questions of ourselves. Think about, and I'm going to have you think a little bit more later, we're going to do a little hypothetical. Think about what problems you might want to solve. Okay? And think about, why does a particular problem exist? There's usually a lot of reasons that go into why a problem exists. If something was as easy as black and white and turning a switch on and off, we'd fix all of our problems. But they're most often more complex than that. So why does the problem exist? And then what do we need to solve it? And really spend time with those two questions. Really, even the first question is the most important. That's going to lay the groundwork for what you need to solve it. And then, okay, now we know what we need to do to solve it. And we'll go into this a little bit more in depth. I swear I'm not just going to gloss right over this. Is who has the skills or who has the resources to be able to help us solve that problem? And a lot of times it's going to be more than one person and more than one organization, which is exactly why you need the community coalition. Then, and this is something that a lot of groups sometimes don't think about until they're further into it, so I encourage you to think about this up front, is what does the community think about your problem? We in animal welfare see the world from this side. We often see things that we want solved for animals in our community, but sometimes the community doesn't see it the same way. And it's not that they don't care, it's like we've heard earlier, sometimes members of the community aren't aware that the problem even exists. So what does the community think about the problem and how you perceive the problem? And try to start seeing how the community perceives the problem. And likewise, how do your potential partners perceive the problem? You're going to identify people or organizations that you're going to want to work together to solve your problem. But try to start thinking about their point of view. What do they think the problem is? Do they think there's a problem? Do you need to bring more awareness to the problem in order to get these partners on board with you? Okay, so planning the plan. A quotation here from Dwight Eisenhower, plans are nothing, planning is everything. I plan to change the world. Great. How are you going to do that? So we got to put some planning behind that plan. So we have to gather information about the problem, why it exists, all those questions that you were asking. Get that information together and think about, because you've already done some brainstorming, those partners that you're going to want to partner with and the community that you're going to bring this solution to. All of this information you gathered, I love all the data stuff that we've been talking about. Get it into a format that people are going to be able to understand. Clear, easy, concise. So that when you do approach your community, when you do approach your potential partners, you have that information right there. Here's the problem, some statistics, here's ways that we believe we can solve this. Put everything in just simple, short, one-pager, card rack for a stand for when you're going out to the community, so people can just get their brains around it really quickly. It might just be enough to plant the seed, and then you might have to do step 2 and have that grow a little bit. Okay, so when you're identifying your potential partners, planning your approach. So put some thought into, do we know these people already? Do we know these organizations? Do we have any communication or contact or semi-relationship already built with them? Maybe someone who you know knows somebody in that other organization. They might be your little introduction. Look at, and it seems kind of really simple, but look at what their time frame is like, and if you're going to approach someone in a business, respect that time frame. Respect that they're trying to conduct business during the day. So maybe you need to send an email ahead of time instead of just showing up on their door and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this problem. You want to join board with us? And follow it up with a phone call perhaps. Set up a time that you can really talk to them. And that first conversation really doesn't have to be the 2-hour conversation. It's a conversation to get the idea planted in their heads. It's a conversation to get that conversation started, just to work on that community partnership. So you've planned your approach, you've got your documents. Think too about the benefits, not only of what's going to, how the animals are going to benefit from this community coalition, but when you're approaching your potential partners, why on earth are they going to want to be a partner with you? Why are they going to want to be part of this coalition? What benefit is it to them? And it's, you know, in a perfect world, everyone would do everything just for free and because it's great and it's the right thing to do. But we don't live in that perfect world just yet, and there's realities. So why does that business partner in the community want to partner and be a coalition member with you? If you're asking them to provide services or resources, supplies for free, why should they? Sometimes it might just be that it'll be good PR. Maybe it'll bring more business in for them. Maybe you're going to find that they're as passionate about this problem as you are, but no one ever talked about it. So you'll have varying degrees of how easy or difficult it might be to bring someone on board. So get your documents in place, figure out when you're going to talk to them, how you're going to talk to them, what it's going to do for them, for the individual or for their business or for their nonprofit organization. And then you plant that seed and then plan to follow up with them at some time in the not too distant future. When you identify your potential partners, think also about maybe they're not going to want to partner with you. And think about what obstacles might come in the way of forming your coalition, but don't let it weigh you down. The quotation here is, obstacles are put in your way to see if what you really want, or what you want, is really worth fighting for. And if you've put the time and the thought and the energy into thinking, yeah, we need a community coalition to solve problem X, it is worth fighting for. So have a little backup plan, but don't let it weigh you down. Keep your chin up and keep moving forward. So these obstacles, think outside the box. Even talking with people standing in lines for lunch and anywhere at grocery stores. Sometimes when you talk about a situation that you might not have the answer to yourself and you're just talking things through, that other person might have an answer. They might not be in animal welfare, or they might hear something differently or see something differently that makes you have a new idea. So just keep putting it out there. Think outside the box. Talk to other people. Don't give up, and just keep your eye on the prize. Why did you start this in the first place? For those animals who need additional help. The quotation here is, the will to persevere is often the difference between failure and success. Okay, so you have started that. You've got your coalition kind of under being formed, and it's time to have that first meeting. You need to all get together in the same room and talk about what it is you're going to accomplish. It's kind of a lot of pressure on that first meeting, but it doesn't have to be. You can do a lot of your prep ahead of time. Simple things like have the room ready. Don't still be setting up, trying to put out snacks and beverages, trying to put papers and pens and documents on people's tables while they're coming in. Get it all set up, be ready to greet them when they come in. Be ready to really welcome them. They're helping solve a problem that you really wanted to solve in the first place. And these are the people in the organizations who are going to help you do that. Have an agenda, respect their time, and as I said earlier with foster parents, thank them, thank them, thank them. Remind them that they are part of the solution, and remind them of what part of that solution they're going to be in order for this whole community coalition to have success. Quotation there is, there is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Okay, so in your first meeting, make sure that the roles are clearly defined of who's doing what, which organization is handling what each organization or partnering member is contributing to this. And now it's not so much for the partnering member, because you already talked to them about what you needed and why you really need them to be part of your coalition. It's also for the other members. This is a chance for everyone to get to know each other. In most cases, there will be people or organizations who did not know each other. Now they're sitting across the table from each other. They're going to be working together, and making sure that everyone understands the really crucial role that each partnering member plays is going to help the whole team in building that coalition. The MOUs, the memorandums of understanding, it's a really good idea, just put something in black and white, you've talked it through, and now let's put it in black and white, who's doing what, and plan on your strategy moving forward, including a timeline. And the thing with timelines is community members, coalition members need to understand that their duty may also impact the timeline of somebody else's duty within that organization. Something might have to happen from this partnering member before something else can happen from this partnering member, because we're going to build on things. And so if one group is really far off the timeline and things aren't happening, it could really start delaying things for everyone. This is where bad feelings start coming in place. This is where your whole thing, your whole community coalition could kind of break down a little bit because people get frustrated that things aren't moving along. With that being said, yes, it's really important to have a timeline, but also remember there could be some flexibility in that timeline as you start moving forward and seeing how things are going and getting those initial pieces in place. And the quotation here, nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small jobs. And that's what we're doing with our coalitions, right? One person, one group can rarely do everything that we need to do for animals. But coming together, if we each take a small piece of that, we can do just fine. Okay, so with your community outreach, just like we talked about kind of figuring out what your potential partners might need or even what they know about the problem at hand, what does your community know about the problem at hand? And just like you researched your potential partners, research about your community. Find out what they know. Find out if they think this is an issue. Going back to those questions in the beginning, what are the causes of the particular problem at hand that you're trying to solve? Research those things. Again, prepare something that your community members are going to be able to quickly and easily see. Something that you can potentially put in storefront windows, little 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper that say what your community coalition is about, and more importantly, the services that you're now going to be able to provide the community, and more importantly, the services you're going to be able to provide the animals in the community, and thereby also helping the people who care for those animals. At the top there, I have a designated person or a team. This is also one of those things that sometimes when community coalitions are coming together, they kind of don't initially think about the PR part of it. And there's an idea that, well, the strategy will be, we'll all do our regular roles, but then all of us will reach out to the community and get the word out there about what we're doing, which is true in part. All of the members will be reaching out to the community and letting them know that this coalition exists and the services that you provide. But someone needs to be in charge of really the PR, the true marketing. And so when you're thinking about starting your community coalition, think about also having someone in your coalition who is a really good powerhouse for knowing a lot of people in your community. Maybe someone who's really tied in with business. Maybe someone who is in PR and marketing, who can take the role of making what you're doing sound great to the community and getting it out there for you. The quotation here says, I believe that if you show people the problems and you show them the solutions, they will be moved to act. And just like we were talking about earlier with finding foster parents, if the community knows there is this need, you make them aware of it, they want to help. They really do. They really do want to help. There we go. So I told you we were going to do a not so hypothetical situation. So in the spirit of this conference, how are we going to be beyond the shelter? How are we going to solve a problem for our not so hypothetical situation? How do we minimize the number of pets who are relinquished to our shelters? Is that kind of a problem? We think, gosh, if only fewer animals were coming to our shelters, right? If only fewer animals were coming to our rescues, even if we're pulling them from shelters. Okay, so this is a real life situation. So I'm going to ask you to please play, please participate. So those questions we asked in the beginning, right? Asking the right questions. Why are pets being relinquished to our shelters? So, bullet points. Somebody participate. Save me. Yes?
The majority in our area is we're in a drought and people are just finding it difficult to live.
So an economic drought? Yeah. So financially, it's hard for people to keep them in their homes because pets cost money. Yeah. Why else? They're moving. Yeah. And we heard about housing that's not accepting pets as well. Yes?
We put too many barriers in the way of reclaim.
Oh, nice. We put too many barriers in the way of reclaim. Yes? I'm sorry? Behavior issues, definitely. Excellent. Yes?
Talking about relinquished, because in fact, coming into shelters in pounds, it's about between, depending on the shelter and pound, 60 to 100% will stray. So the actual owner relinquished is fairly small, depending on whether it's cats or pound. So that's the area that needs to be addressed, straying dogs, but cats are a huge issue.
Okay, thank you. So there's also the point that many of the animals who come into the shelters are not actually owned animals that are being relinquished, but are stray animals. And that is certainly another issue that we can try to solve, perhaps with it.
One of the issues with dogs is the correct data on the microchip database, so it's very difficult for people if they don't know the microchip number to actually get it changed. So then some of our research showed that 37% of dogs and 37% of cats that had a microchip, the data was completely correct.
Okay, so could you tell me your first name, please? Jackie, thank you. So Jackie was saying about the microchips, perhaps in many cases the microchip numbers aren't accurately recorded for the owners, or the contact details have changed. Yes, so another reason that we're maybe not able to reunite some of the animals. So those are all some really good points there. Oh, did we just go ahead? Did you peek at that slide? So those are some of the reasons that animals are being relinquished to the shelters, in addition to the stray situations that may be happening as well, that definitely are happening as well. What potential partners then, if we're talking about finances, we're talking about behavior, we're talking about all of the wonderful ideas that you said, who could be our potential partners to help us solve those things? Few more answers. Yes? Pet supply companies. Yeah, to provide some of those supplies that maybe are too expensive for owners to buy. What else? Yes? Excellent. Human welfare services. It's the people problems and animal problems are not just animal problems, they're animal and people problems, oftentimes together. Yes, thank you. Now, one more and then we'll move on for time's sake. Yes, hi. I'm sorry? Obedience clubs and dog training, excellent. And cat training for that matter, and cat behavior issues. Thank you. So, my thumb had already pressed this earlier, but for sake of purposes of planning, I put some of those ideas into the bullet points. So again, financial reasons, people might have lost a job, the pet might be too expensive because of food or medical or grooming or supplies that are needed. Behavioral issues, the dog runs away, there's urinating outside the litter box, medical issues. There could be a quick onset medical issue, maybe it was a hit by car. Maybe there was something that went very wrong very quickly. Maybe it's going to be an ongoing issue. A cat has been diagnosed with kidney disease or diabetes, and they're not going to do the insulin or afford the insulin, et cetera. So the change in a family situation, moving somewhere. So we have all of those things, and then we also have the people who could possibly help us solve that. So financial assistance, job assistance, pet food pantries, groomers, veterinarians. For the behavior, you already mentioned us having some trainers. Maybe also with that behavior is is perhaps running away. And I like that it's been brought up too about fencing already. This is something that we're finding is a really good solution for a lot of the situations that we're seeing in the United States as well, for keeping the animals contained in their yards, but having the freedom to move around within their yard, not having to be on a chain. So perhaps someone who's a fencing contractor can donate time or supplies to build some fences for some of these animals. Perhaps there's medical things, perhaps the change in situation. This is where, if you're looking at foster programs, maybe there's long-term fostering for people who can get, there's something has come up in their life, maybe it's a military deployment, maybe it's just something else that has come up in their life. They don't want to give up their animal, and they would like to have their animal back, but they just need 6 months or something to deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with, or that if they have to be away for some amount of time. So those are some possible solutions. And also keep in mind your rescue groups. How many here are rescue groups versus shelters? So, okay, great. And working together, the rescues and the shelters together, really help fill some of those spots and needs. And keep seeking solutions, keep reaching out to other organizations. I'm amazed at where we sometimes find answers to our questions and solutions to our problems. So you've done all of that. You've created your not so hypothetical community coalition. You've asked the right questions. You've planned and prepared. You collaborated. You met with your partners. Now you got your community involvement, and now you just need to go forth and do great things. It's as simple as that, right? So when we're going forth and doing those great things, we need to keep looking at any obstacles that come up, but don't give up on them. And we also need to evaluate the program and assess the impacts. And I feel like I skipped over something, because when I was talking about the community involvement, getting your community, so not your coalition members, but community members to know about your program. And someone had mentioned pet supply stores, and approaching those members of the community to help support what the coalition is doing. Does that make sense? So the coalition maybe wants to be able to provide those services or supplies, but we then as a coalition need to reach out to our community businesses and say, hey, can you help support this program? Can you donate some supplies? Can you donate financially? Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they are willing, though, to put a donation box on their countertop. Maybe they are willing to put that poster in their window to help spread the word about your coalition. Okay, so now it comes to 10 minutes left, or less than that, and we need to assess the impacts of what your community coalition has done. So keeping records is going to be very important. We're hearing about that already. Keep the information, keep the data, keep the records. So think about what it is that you want it to do in the beginning. What needs have been met? How many times have you been able to say to the person who has come to your coalition, hey, I really need help with X? Or how many times, if it's our keeping the animals from being relinquished to the shelter, have we been able to provide the supplies or the services or the support to that person and say, here, you can keep your pet at home because we're going to help you do that. And also, which is great, keep that chart, and hopefully that's the really long list. But on the shorter side of the list, hopefully it's the shorter side of the list, what needs were you not able to meet? And then at the end of the year or the end of 6 months, you can look at that and say, look at all the great stuff we did, but we still had, 25 people, 25 animals that came into the shelter because we weren't able to provide these things, or we weren't able to help as much as they needed. That doesn't mean it all has to fall on your shoulders. You don't have to provide everything to everyone. But it is a place that you can look and see, is this someplace that we can expand what we do as a coalition? You don't always have to. There is that thing called mission creep. So if your mission is your mission and you need to stick to your mission, that's fine, but you might find that there might be an area or two you want to tweak. Keeping those kind of records are going to help you decide those things. Estimate the costs of your services that you were able to provide. And this is really good, of course, for your own internal books and knowing what you've done and what it's cost and how much you've been able to help your community. But also when you're looking for that grant money, they're going to want to know approximately how much financially has this cost, how much have you helped financially. But more important than that is going to be how many animals have you been able to help, and how many people have you been able to help because you were able to help their animals. So evaluate your program at least yearly, and then celebrate your successes. Because, I mean, this was a big undertaking. I made it sound easy, right? But it was a big undertaking. And I'm betting that you will have success. It might not initially be the complete success that you want, but it will be some success, and then you can build on that as well. And let your community know. So last final quotation, this is from Jane Goodall. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Surely together we can make the world a better place for all living things. So thank you very much for sticking through this. Your communities and your coalitions will thank you.